Hi, my name is Rachel. I'm a curriculum developer and animator at Explore Learning, but today I'm going to show you how to set up a growing plants experiment at home. So what you'll need is a few containers for plants. I'm using these little glass containers, but if you have some empty used K-cup containers, those are great too. You just empty them out, tape up the little hole in the bottom, and you're good to go. So what I did with these containers is I filled them all up with some soil, and I labeled them with the different things I'm going to do. So one thing we're going to do is compare different amounts of water. So in this container, we're going to leave this container in the sun. We're not going to put any fertilizer in it, and we're not going to add any water. This container we're also going to leave in the sun. I'm not going to put in any fertilizer, and I'm going to put in some water. So I'm probably going to put in 1/4 tablespoon every few days. In this container, we're going to leave it in the sun. I'm going to put in no fertilizer, and I'm going to put in more water, maybe about a tablespoon a day. And then over time, we'll check and see how the seeds grow, either with no water, a little bit of water, or a lot of water. So I have two more containers here. In this container, I'm going to leave this in the sun. I'm going to add water, and I'm going to add fertilizer. And so then we'll be able to compare fertilizer and no fertilizer. And in this container, I'm going to put it in a closet so it doesn't get any sun. And then we'll be able to compare these two and see the effects of sun and no sun. So after you fill up your containers with some soil, you'll need to put some seeds in them. I have these microgreen seeds, but anything you can grow will work. So take the seeds out of the packet and place a few in each of the containers. Now I'm going to add some water to only the ones that get water. So here's... Okay. So now I have some indoor fertilizer. So now we'll wait, and actually this one I'm going to go put in a closet so that it doesn't get any sun. And these other containers I'm going to put in the windowsill back there, and then let's wait and see what happens. I will water any of the containers that need water every day or so if it looks like they're getting dry. Hi guys, it's been 1 week since I started this plant growing experiment, so let's take a look at what happened. So these 4 containers have all been in the sun. You'll see that these 2 containers, this one had no water, this one had a little bit of water, and both of these I put in more water. So what it looks like is that the plants that got sun and water were both able to grow, and in the container where there was no water, the plants definitely didn't grow. And I don't really see anything happening in this container where I only added a little water. It's been looking pretty dry every day, so the little bit I added was probably not enough to get things to grow. So what we can say from comparing these is that it looks like plants need water to grow. So now if we compare the one with no fertilizer and one with fertilizer, it's a little hard to make any conclusions because there aren't that many plants that have grown, but maybe you could say that these are a little bigger. It's hard to tell. I think you would need to repeat the experiment multiple times with lots of plants and make really specific measurements to determine if these ones with fertilizer were really truly bigger. But what we can say is that you don't need fertilizer to grow because these plants without the fertilizer grew fine. Now let's take a look at the one that's been in the closet. So this one's kind of interesting. It looks like the plants, most of the plants sprouted, and then these plants have really high sprouts, but they're not green, and the leaves are all shriveled up. They didn't get any bigger. So it looks like you definitely need the sun to help make these leaves and really grow. Now let's use the Growing Plants gizmo to recreate some of the experiments we did with the real plants. So on explorelearning.com, click on Find Gizmos, and you can start typing in Growing Plants over here, so we'll click on it, and then click here to launch the gizmo. Okay. Now in this gizmo you can vary a bunch of different variables. You can change the amount of water given to each plant. You can choose a few different seeds to look at. You can add fertilizer or compost to the containers, and you can turn the lights on and off by clicking them. So let's set up an experiment with the tomato seeds. So we'll drag one tomato seed to each of the containers. And in this experiment, let's compare the amount of water between each of the pots. So in the first pot, I'll drag this slider down to decrease the amount of water to 0 milliliters per day. In this container, I'll leave 50 milliliters. And in this container, I'll drag it up to 80 milliliters per day. And then click play, and let's see what happens. You'll notice in the pot that had no water, the plant doesn't grow. But in the pots that were given water, the plants did grow. And you can test out different amounts of water to see what happens. So now in this pot, you see that when there's no water, the plant still doesn't grow. When there's a little bit of water, the plant grows, but it doesn't look as good as it did before. And in this pot where we added lots of water, it looks like so much water was added that the plant also doesn't look like it grew that well. So we can also do an experiment to vary the amount of light in each of the rooms and see what that effect is on the plants. So first I will move all of these containers back to 50 milliliters so that each of them get the same amount of water per day. And in this room, I'll leave all the lights on. In this room, I'll click on one light to turn it off. And in this room, I'll click on all 3 lights to turn all of them off. So let's click play. And as you can see, just like the plants in our real experiment, the plant with the most light grew pretty well, and the plant that didn't get any light sprouted, but it didn't grow those nice green leaves that the other plant has. So now use the gizmo to look at other kinds of seeds or test out what the effect of fertilizer or compost is on the plants. But remember when you're setting up an experiment to always make sure you're only varying one variable per room so that you can compare them when the experiment is over.